Welcome to Holy Health, the podcast where cutting-edge health insights meet timeless biblical wisdom. Join us as we explore the latest in wellness, fitness, and mental health, all while grounding our journey in the spiritual truths and guidance found in the Torah. Whether you're looking to nourish your body, mind, or soul, we'll help you live a life of balance, vitality, and faith. Tune in to discover how to achieve holistic health through the perfect blend of modern science and ancient wisdom. Let's dive into the fullness of life, body, and spirit together. Hey guys, welcome back to Holy Health. Because I promised myself and sort of the rest of you that I was going to really be putting out an episode every 2 weeks, I felt like it was really important to put something out this week. Thank God, Baruch Hashem, this podcast is growing more and more and more. I get so pleasantly surprised every week when I get from Buzzsprout, which is the hosting site for the podcast, an email telling me how many people have been watching episodes, and we are up to roughly I'm getting about 500 views a week. That does out a new episode every 2 weeks. So that's across the spectrum, meaning it's mostly whatever the latest episode was, but that means that people are also going back and listening to old episodes, and that doesn't include YouTube. So I really, really want to thank you guys for helping this podcast grow. With that being said, we're putting out a rerun this week, and I decided that putting out a rerun about brain health is a really important thing to do, and I'll go into why in just a minute. But I have so many incredible interviews lined up. I think I have about 10 interviews lined up over the next 4 weeks. And the first one was done tonight, and that was not going to give me enough time to put together a Torah extra and have my editor Yakir be able to edit it in time for Thursday. So I told him we're going to just put out a rerun this week, and in 2 weeks you guys will get one of these new episodes. So I felt like brain health was such an important thing because this whole topic of like Alzheimer's and dementia, it's such a big topic. Every day there's a new drug coming out. Every day there's a new miracle supplement that you can hear about. And if you just do this, this is going to protect you against Alzheimer's. And I know that it's a big topic for so many people that I felt like what I spoke about with Dr. Barry Dinner in terms of brain health was a lot about the basics. In other words, if you want some of these supplements which could help, or some of these potential exercises that could help, if you're not doing a lot of these basic things, how effective is it going to be to continue to throw a lot of supplements in another and a lot of things like that at something? You really do have to go back. You have to lower inflammation in the body, and you have to approach things from the inside out to really have an effect on brain health. And the other reason I thought about doing this episode on brain health is because it is my mother's 80th birthday, God willing, this Friday. So this episode is in honor of my mother. My mother is one of my idols. She's one of obviously the most important people in my life. I look up to her so much. And, brain health has always been a very important topic to her, because her grandmother, my great-grandmother, did have Alzheimer's or dementia towards the end of her life. And this is something that my mother has always wanted to avoid it. And if you guys have ever gone back and listened to my episode number 1 where I interviewed my parents, if you haven't, you might want to do that so you'll understand a lot about who I am. My mother's always been a healthy person. But this topic of brain health has always been a big one. She spends a lot of time doing a lot of the things that aren't easy to do and a lot of things that are hard because she wants to make sure that Bezrat Hashem, please God, her brain remains healthy. So I hope you guys will enjoy this. I know if any of you listen to this, that you listened to it a really long time ago. So I think listening to it again is always a good thing. The Torah Extra is done by Idan, who's done a bunch of these different extras for us. She's just one of my favorites. She's such a special person. And I hope you guys will enjoy it. Even if you're hearing it for the second time, you may not remember some of the things. And as I always tell you, if you want to help me out with Torah Extras, I really could use some help. I'm always looking for new people. And if you are somebody who has something interesting to offer our listeners, please feel free to reach out to me. And if you just read about something interesting, one of my good friends, you will know who you are when you hear this, is constantly reaching out to me with different topics and asking me to do, to cover different topics. I always appreciate that. I appreciate hearing from you guys. Any feedback you want to give me, good or bad, I'm open to it. I'm willing to listen to it. And I hope you guys have a Shabbat Shalom and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Holy Health. My guest for the second time is Dr. Barry Dinner. Dr. Dinner is the driving force behind Be Young. He's a certified anti-aging and functional medicine specialist and a veteran physician of more than 30 years. Dr. Dinner has worked with thousands of patients to hone his anti-aging and functional medicine treatment methodology. Together with his team of experts, Dr. Dinner brings his knowledge and expertise to help you reverse the signs and symptoms of premature aging. So welcome back, first of all.
Thanks. Good to be here. Good to see you again.
You too. You too. So I'm sure you guys remember Dr. Dinner from the original talk we did on exactly what he does, which is anti-aging. But he came back today so that we could talk about brain health and things that we could do to protect our brain. Because really, when we think of aging, I don't know, we kind of think of dementia, Alzheimer's, and really things that often affect the brain. And really that's, what it is. And so I'm really, really excited to have you back again today.
Thanks. Good. It's good to be here.
So what should we start out with? We want to talk about brain health. What can we do to keep our brains healthy?
Okay. Well, firstly, there is a lot one can do. In other words, the old concept was that as you get older, there is atrophy of the brain, dying off the brain cells, and there's nothing you could do about it. And it's an irreversible process. And that's it. Now we know, even post-stroke and post-brain injury, there is a fair amount of rehabilitation and regrowing of brain cells. And you're not left with a status of damage and no way to come back. So we have to know how, and it's very important to distinguish what we do, which is quite successful actually. In conventional medicine, there's been an attempt, there's major attempts to make a drug that can stop Alzheimer's. So we know, for example, Alzheimer's, you build up a protein called amyloid, and that kind of replaces healthy brain cells, and then you get dementia. So conventional medicine is busy trying to find a drug that breaks down amyloid so that we can stop this process of damage. And they've spent billions and billions of dollars. And in the end of the day, they have found a drug that does it. I'll tell you the name. I think it's Adumalab. And it costs $50,000 to you to buy for a year. And it's FDA approved. And it breaks down amyloid. So, we've got a treatment and cure for Alzheimer's. But the bottom line is it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all, and people don't get better. And the reason is, well, I'll tell you why, because it's a wrong concept. Amyloid is actually there to protect the brain. And when you get many insults to the brain, toxins and all kinds of things that are going to damage the brain builds up amyloid to protect itself. So by going to try and break down amyloid, you're doing exactly the wrong thing. It's not good for the brain. So basically, we have relied on some very, very brilliant neurologists and researchers in the States in functional medicine and serious people. And they've been, for example, in this space for 30 years looking for what to do. So the one Dr. Bredesen, what he's in this institute called the Buck Institute, been researching for years, serious research. And then he looked at his wife, who's a functional medicine family practitioner. And so what are you doing? What's going on here with your type of medicine? And he started seeing that by looking at fixing up root causes, you could start helping the brain. And he started adapting and looking in the direction of functional medicine. And what he discovered was that he calls it 36 holes in the roof.
Mm-hmm.
So what are these holes in? These are leaks coming in the roof, and they're damaging the brain. And if you can identify some of them, 9, 10 out of 36, and block them, you seal the leak, people start getting better. So our aim really is to find out what are those damaging causes, what's going wrong, identify them scientifically, and start fixing them up, and people start getting better. So yeah.
Well, I just want to ask you a question before we get into the side which we know and love, which is that functional medicine side. Why is it that a drug company is allowed to sell a $50,000 a year drug that doesn't work? I mean, I assume it must work at getting rid of the amyloid.
Yes, it does.
But I assume they saw no results.
Right.
Meaning they saw that the amyloid was, you were getting rid of it, but that there was no result or carryover. If anything, it sounds like the person would actually be getting worse because you've taken away that protection.
Right. So people, they have found, I mean, as you know, in trials, they look, first of all, they have an endpoint that they're trying to achieve. They say, we want to achieve X. So it may be that there's a change in the MRI scan for the better. Maybe the cognitive tests are better. People are improving subjectively and objectively. And they look for these endpoints and see if the drug's achieving any of the endpoints. And they look for side effects. So obviously, it did achieve some endpoints that they were looking for, but the bottom line that they found, and that's why there's no excitement anymore. No one's talking about it anymore. And it came out as a big news event, but it's gone because the bottom line, having a year or two experience with it, people are not getting better. That's the bottom line. So, I mean, they tried and they showed the FDA that there were certain endpoints achieved, but they're just not real. And it didn't happen.
Okay, because that was my next thought right away was, well, at what cost? So this might get rid of that, but what are all the side effects that this drug are probably causing as well on the other end of the spectrum?
We're not, but basically when they do a double-blind trial with 3-phase trials, they do look for side effects. So obviously there's nothing major as yet. There could be long-term when you find after use, they find side effects, but at this point, nothing major, I don't believe.
Okay,
but
so back
side effects,
so back to what you wanted to talk about, which is back to what can we do to stop these leaks?
Okay, so first, one big message, which is very important, is the earlier you start, the better you do. In other words, when we get mild cognitive impairment, when things are mild, people do much better. Once it's more advanced, it's more difficult and the results aren't good. Even though some of these guys in the States who are really experienced and have a long background of doing this field are getting some results, even with fairly advanced. But I could tell you from my experience, earlier you get it, the better you do. So when we find even mild stuff, you're losing words, your calculation ability is not so good. People are counting change and it takes longer. You're not recognizing faces. You're losing things, mild, subtle things that you're starting to notice. Now, it happens to all of us to an extent as we get older. But if it becomes an issue, you start feeling there's a difference. You start feeling your brain power has reduced. Don't wait. That's the first message. Do something about it because it's at that stage, a lot of it is reversible. So that's the first thing, early recognition. So then the next thing would be before the general principles for everyone, but is to test. You want to know what is going on. And the first thing always, which I do for all functional medicine patients, is look in the conventional field if we're not missing something serious and reversible, because conventional medicine is important and there's a lot that they do, which is very crucial. And we don't want to go and miss things and looking at all natural type of treatments, and we'd miss something like a low pressure hydrocephalus, which means that people get this pressure build up in their brain from a bit of obstruction of the fluid in the middle of the ventricles in the brain, which is reversible, and you didn't look for it, and you're busy giving all kinds of nutrients and supplements. And so first things first, get a neurologist, check what's going on. If you see something's not right, either you recognize or someone is recognizing for you, family, and then we say, okay, we've ruled out anything serious, and then we can start looking for the other stuff. So then really what we want to do testing. So for example, we'll test for toxins. We'll test for minerals. Now, just before, the categories of testing are two things. The one is what we call what's neurotrophic. The other is what's neurotoxic. The two areas that cause this damage. One is a lack of neurotrophic stuff, things that build brain.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Lacking things that you need for any tissue, for example, muscle. You could compare it to muscle. If we haven't got the right nutrition, enough protein, and we're not doing the right exercises, our muscles atrophy. You have to have the right foods and the right metabolic elements that are going to help build any tissue, and that is obviously the same with the brain. First thing is we're going to look for the lack of what we call building. Neurotrophic means building brain tissue. And then the second area is looking for neurotoxic things. What are toxic to the brain? So we'll look for, on the toxic side, we'll look for sugar. Sugar is a big toxin for the brain. Brain energy from healthy oils, which make ketones and produce energy in the brain, that's much healthier. There are certain toxins, mercury, cadmium, arsenic. We can look for them, and some people are exposed to them, and we need to remove them. There's certain metabolic processes in the body. For example, with methylation is a process of breaking down foods and hormones and toxins. If it's not efficient, you get a buildup of a chemical called homocysteine. And we know that high levels of homocysteine can cause damage to the brain. So there are a number of various toxic elements that can be identified and removed by testing. So the first thing is to look for the neurotoxic stuff, test, and remove.
So would you recommend this kind of testing? Let's say, like, you said the earlier you start, the better, right? So it seems like eating this way, or maybe checking this, even if you see no signs of neurological damage, might be a good thing to do.
Well, I think I'll get to that at the end as basic prevention, sort of more generic for everyone, because I think all of us, we know, for example, I've mentioned it before, maybe in the last talk, but you've heard of the blue zones. You've heard of blue zones where people live into the hundreds, and they're very healthy, and they walk over mountains, and they just live long, and even brain health is perfect. There's they don't know of dementia. They get to 100, get some short-term illness, and they die. But their brains are healthy. So obviously, it's the Western lifestyle. It's Western life, and if we remain in this type of lifestyle with the type of foods we're eating and the way we're sitting the whole day, whatever I'm sure you've spoken at length about, so it's contributing. It must be. You can see it. So basically, those are the generic preventive stuff we should all be doing, because as it's such a rampant thing in Western civilization is dementia. It's rampant. So we've got to change those basic stuff anyway. But when it gets to already a noticeable level, we have to start testing. We have to start testing. So we look for the toxins. Then we also look for the neurotrophic stuff that may be missing. For example, the minerals that are missing that are very crucial. There's magnesium is very crucial for the brain, and not all magnesium can get into the brain. There's a barrier, the blood-brain barrier, which prevents a lot of things getting into the brain. There's a certain magnesium, for example, we use in supplements called magnesium threonate, which is the one substance that gets through the blood-brain barrier into the brain. Very crucial. So we've got to know what are the elements, what are the minerals, what are the foodstuffs, the nutrients that are missing that have to be given. Another big one is hormones, which we've discussed and we'll discuss again. But we know that at menopause, women, a very big symptom is, I've lost it. I don't remember it. It's a very big symptom. And the reason is a lack of estrogen. A woman is used to having estrogen, and suddenly it's gone. And it affects thinking. It affects the brain speed. It affects a lot of elements of brain health. And the same in males who lose testosterone. They go through what we call andropause, which is similar to menopause. It's much more subtle, but their testosterone goes down, and they also get the same cognitive changes due to hormone reduction. On the other side, on a toxic level, talking about hormones would be cortisol. So we know that stress is a very big toxin to the brain because it produces cortisol. And cortisol fries the brain. It's very, very bad for the brain. So we really, as on a preventive level, we can measure it. Now, in our checkups, we measure the cortisol graph to see if people are running high or low in cortisol. But just as a preventive, one wants to be very, very, very careful with stress because we know people who are lonely, isolated, don't have good social connections, stressed, depressed, all of these emotional factors affect brain.
Okay.
So we know that, for example, chronic low-grade infections, gum infections, chronic sinusitis, GI infections, people who've got low-grade GI stuff going on. So you often have to look for that, and you see people have signs of like an elevated CRP, C-reactive protein, or things that may indicate. And you've got to look for those infections because they cause chronic damage. It's a very important, as you've heard of gut-brain connection. And so we have to look for all of these factors to both identify the toxic and the trophic. So that's the first thing we do.
We just talked about gum health a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
So, and inflammation and gum disease and things like that. So, yeah, everything fits together. So how would you test for these things? Can I go to my local doctor and just say, I want a blood test to check neurotoxins? How do you do this?
Get some. You can get a reasonable basic idea of a few vitamins. You can get your lipid profile, see what type of cholesterol, your glucose, your insulin. You can get some stuff here. A lot of the stuff we do have to get, we send to the States because, for example, you want to get minerals, you want to get toxins. So we do, for example, a blood spot. You just prick the finger and you put it on like a blotting paper, and they extract it in certain urine tests. So we look for toxins and minerals and more advanced lipid profile, which we actually send. And we also do like a stool test. Obviously Judy Kaiser, our nutritionist, she's part of the team. So she helps us send things like a very advanced stool test where we look at inflammation and the microbiome and all the different things that you can see in stool. A lot of information. So it depends how far, but when we find someone who's really young or not even so young, but they're early and it's advancing, we do everything. We want to know any of these areas that have to be fixed, any of these so-called leaks in the roof. So we do quite extensive testing. A lot of it would not be here. We have to send it out. Not available here as yet. Hopefully they'll get a functional medicine laboratory set up here one day.
That'd be great. Yeah.
That would be nice. But at the moment it's not. So we send it out. And based on your picture, and everyone is different. Someone is there's someone who's glucotoxic, which is essentially from the glucose metabolism, and the other toxins that can be there. So you can actually categorize people into different categories based on what we find, and the treatment is somewhat different for each person. But we go from all directions: nutrition and supplements and diet. And in other words, what we find, if you do a sort of a kind of a half-baked job, people don't get better.
Mm-hmm.
You go for everything. So, and then people do get better. We've had people like a guy on our program. So he did at, I think, Tel Shomer, there's a center for Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
He scored about 23 on the mocha test, which is not so good. It's already getting mild to moderate out of 30. And on our program for 1 year is at 27. He's back up to 27, which is quite unusual. You don't get that. Now, it's not me. It's amazing. It's just this amazing program that actually helps in the more mild situation. So the generic stuff really that you mentioned before you even start testing and you haven't got problems, but you're getting a bit into the menopausal age group and andropause age group. So these are things and you're an expert. Obviously, diet is crucial. The usual principles that of diet. Exercise, there's a very big correlation between brain health and fitness. And you have to get into that. Stress management, very, very crucial. Hearing is a big one. And we know that for people who ignore hearing, as you get older and you start having some impairment and you leave it, those brain cells in the hearing area start degenerating and it affects everything. And it's very crucial. We're all nervous to test for hearing, but it's a very important thing. One of the big ones in terms of basic prevention for brain health. Then obviously sleep quality is very crucial. We want to have a good sleep. The other thing is to use one's brain. And we know for all illnesses, retirement's a very dangerous age group because you start becoming passive. And you go and buy the newspaper at the Makolet and you come home and read it, and then you're not sure what to do next. Watch the television. It's passive. You've got to be actively involved. It's a dangerous age group. We don't advocate not retiring because you may be stressed by not retiring. But you've got to shift gears. You have to shift and you have to downgrade your work, but don't stop. Get into something active and purposeful. In other words, we don't go and do brain exercise. They're good, and you can do brain exercises online. There are many different companies that do brain exercise. But much more important is to be purposefully involved. Wake up with a mission in the morning. Get up and go and do some work, voluntary work to help people in the hospitals, but something that you feel good about. And certainly if you can use your brain as well, teaching people, being involved, learning a language, taking on a new career, taking on a new study thing that you'd always wanted to do your whole life, hobbies. There's a lot of things to be done, and we want to keep our brain engaged. As you would know, if the body's engaged, you stay fit and healthy. The same with the brain. Don't let it go passive. So I think those are the big ones in terms of just generic prevention for all of us. Healthy lifestyle and all the above that we've mentioned. And we can go a very long way. Even conventional medicine, you can see now in Medscape and all the research papers coming out now, they're suddenly recognizing the importance and association of dementia and lifestyle. It's so clear. and we've been doing it for a long time, but it's getting in to even conventional, and it's there, and we should all be doing it. So I think that's, but obviously when one gets to it, when one thinks it's now becoming problematic, then take it seriously, test, see what's going wrong, and start reversing. Then you got to ramp it up and see what you do.
Can we go back to the eating for a minute? Because I think that you've mentioned to me before intermittent fasting and things like that. Could we talk for a minute about maybe brain health in terms of diet, like maybe things that people could be doing already? Maybe there are certain things that nobody should ever eat, and do you have any recommendations as far as that?
I mean, essentially, you want to convert your major calorie intake from sugars and processed carbohydrates into healthy oils. Essentially, you want to have a lot of healthy oils. And
can you mention what those are?
And olive oil is a big one. We don't mind coconut. We like what's it called? Avocado. Fresh, unprocessed oil. Any oil, by the way, that's processed is bad news. A lot of people like canola oil, rapeseed. All of the plant-based oils are bad. Not so much because they're plant-based, but because of the processing. They're heated to prepare them, and they become hydrogenated, and they're inflammatory, and they're not good for the body, and they're not good for the brain. So we want to convert to the more tree oils, nut oils, obviously healthy fish. If you can get healthy fish, sea fish, sardines, things that come from deep water, cold water, sea fish are better. What are they called? The smash fish. What does smash stand for? Salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring.
Right. So I wouldn't be familiar.
Those are high in omega-3.
I wish there was something I could do about liking fish, but there is. It makes me throw up.
But interesting enough,
for most of you,
if you get grass-fed beef, it's got omega-3 oil in it. In other words, if you compare, and I've spoken to shoftim from South America, we get our meat, which you don't want to have a lot of meat, but we don't mind having meat if it's grass-fed, because obviously if you compare that cow who's walking around, he's eating the food he's supposed to eat, which is grass, and he's moving, and he's got a lot of muscle, and he's a healthy cow. And the shoftim, when they've chefed them, they tell you how healthy they are, versus the cows put in a pen, given this horrible feed to try and fatten them up in 6 months. They're full of this fat. They never move. That's not a healthy meat. But we like to use certainly animal protein as a condiment. We don't like to use it as the main part of the meal. So if you're going to have beef or chicken or whatever, you want to have it as a condiment, like a chicken salad or vegetables with protein. Protein should be not a major factor. You need protein, but not to have protein and a bit of vegetables, rather have vegetables and a bit of protein in the vegetables. That's a better way to eat. So it's the healthy oils, small amount of protein, a lot of healthy vegetables, some fruits, and essentially that's what you're looking at. That's going to make for any system would be healthy eating.
And are there any supplements that you recommend, or nothing across the board that it's got to be according to?
There are supplements. We like choline. Choline is a brain food.
Okay.
And there's certain cholines that get into the brain better. One is called CDP choline, choline, which is, you can get them, they're supplements on iHerb, especially if you're already feeling things. I think one can get enough of the nutrients in your diet if you're not feeling anything, if you're still cognitively healthy and alert. But once it's happening, choline's a good one. We like a thing called bacopa, which is a a very good product. It has some proof that it builds brain cells. It's called Bacopa. We like sodium threonate. There's a mushroom called lion's mane, which is a very, very proven to help build. It's a neurotrophic supplement. So there's certain supplement, omega-3 is very good for one. Certain supplements that are strong. Again, when you get into the supplement field, you're not looking at these $1 million double-blind studies.
Mhm.
They do small studies and say 100 people, and they look at various parameters, what's happening by taking. But there's definite proof in all of the ones that I've mentioned that they help. In fact, we had a product, a made product, which is I don't know if I should publicize it, but it's true. Very good products. So they work. In other words, our brain, what the good part of it, we put all of the good stuff into one capsule for any particular issue. So if for bone building, we had everything you need in one capsule. For brain health, everything in one. And Reneuro, which is just this month run out of date, expiry, and we're not going to redo it because we've run out of money. The investor ran out of money, and you need a lot of money to reproduce. In other words, business is a different thing from medicine. So we hope to redo it because it works. My patients who take it, it helps. So, you can get on iHerb stuff. I haven't found everything that we've put in, but you certainly can get stuff that include a few of these products together.
Now,
brain stuff.
Now, would these products work, let's say, if someone didn't make the other necessary lifestyle changes?
No, they would help. I think they would be a little bit helpful. They would be. But again, we find, especially with these neurologists who run these programs with maybe thousands of people, so they have a long and big track record. They find if you do half or a quarter or a third or less, you don't do well. You've got to do everything. And everything, you don't know what's contributing how much percentage. So you want to put in as much as you can, especially if you're noticing a problem, do it all. But I think for basic prevention, I think it would be helpful for anyone.
And what about, let's say, sleep? How much sleep do you recommend people get?
I think the sweet spot would be about 7 hours. In other words, there's now evidence that too little sleep for sure is bad for one, but too much sleep is also not good. In other words, people are sleeping 9 hours is not so healthy. I think if you want to make a figure, 7 would be a great sweet spot for sleep.
And does that need to be uninterrupted 7 hours of sleep?
It would be nice, yes.
Okay.
Good. If it's uninterrupted, it's good.
Okay. And let's say, stressful life. Let's say someone's doing everything else, but they're still leading a really stressful life.
Yeah. Well, that's a big one. That's why my book that I've written on stress, it's called The Heart of the Matter. Why is it the heart of the matter? Because we all forget about it, and we're looking at cholesterol and blood pressure and all the other factors and nutrition, and we forget stress because we don't know how to measure it and we don't know how to deal with it. So, okay, we're stressed, but let's get the other things in place. But frequently, you get everything in place, forget about that, and things go wrong anyway. It's a big one, maybe the biggest factor for all of our health. So one has to deal with it. And my message for stress essentially is number one is recognize that you're being stressed because we get used to it. In the Western world, we're used to being stressed. So that's life. What else do you expect? The first thing is recognize that you're stressed. And the second thing is identify the causes. Because there are many causes, and often there's a stressor, it's an illness in the family, something, and then you recognize it, and then it goes into the subconscious. You forget, when you wake up in the morning, you feel a bit of stress, but you've forgotten where it's coming from. So you got to bring that up to the conscious mind. These are the things that are stressing you. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, most important, third step is to make a plan what to do about it. You've got to make a plan. You can't say, obviously, stress is when you lose control. That's what stress is. If it's financial, I'm out of control. There's nothing I can do. I haven't got the money. There's nothing, I'm out of control. A relationship, whatever it is, you lose control. And the aim really is to get control, get back that control, whether it's by changing things. Sometimes we can change things and manipulate and get out of it. But frequently we cannot change. It's a relationship, it's a child, it's something that you're not going to change. Then you have to work on attitude. You have to start getting an attitude and say, well, this is how it should be. I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to make the most of it. You got to make them an attitude that's not going to be harmful. So that's essentially what my book's about. And I think it works. All the other techniques of deep breathing and relaxation techniques all help. But it's more, I would say, the ECMO. It's the ECMO, the symptomatic relief. But the real thing is recognize, identify the cause, and make plans. You may need to get help to make it. It may be out of control. So go and get help. Get a financial advisor, get a psychologist, a rabbi. You may need to get help, but do what you can to get out of stress. That's what I always tell the anecdote. I think it's in my book. You'll recognize this. I was sitting in a clinic in Beitar, which your father and I started our clinic. One of the branches was there. And I suddenly got this irregular heartbeat. Uh-oh, what's going on? I ran to the nurse, got an EKG abnormal. The manager got me in his car. We rushed to Charité. By the time I got there, it had resolved. And then I went back and I thought, what's going on here? And I realized I was very stressed. I didn't get it. That's what life was. You finish your session. Now you got to go to a frat. And there are 5 people just waiting outside. But you finish. Doc, where are you going, Doc? I've got to go to another clinic. No, I've got a chest pain. And then you leave the clinic and you feel bad and you're guilty.
Right.
And the doctors work under stress. So when I realized it, I made changes. I made my own clinic. I've got secretaries. I've got control. And whatever. It's a small anecdote, but it's real.
No, also, I think that there are certain types of people who internalize their stress. So, for example, nobody would ever know you were stressed. I literally remember your wife telling me years ago, she never one time saw you raise your voice in all the years you've been married. And back then you were already married, probably, I don't know, 25, 30 years, whatever it was, you know? And I think I sometimes make jokes with people that it's almost better to like let it out, like yell at your children, because at least then you're not keeping it inside. Because I know some of the people who always have this big smile pasted on their face, like those are the same people that have come to me with jaw pain because they're actually clenching and grinding, but they're always smiling. So you always think they're happy, but they're internalizing it. So sometimes I don't know what you would think about that. It's better if you can actually let it out because then you're not this pot waiting to like boil over, you know?
Right. There is an element of, yes, internalizing. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So let me ask you another question. You know, I always like to ask people what spirituality means to them. And do you think that having a spiritual practice is essential for brain health as well? You know?
It's crucial. As I think I mentioned in the last talk, and I'll just re-emphasize
Sure.
the latest book I've written is how to make the second part of life successful. And we made the health pyramid. And the health pyramid, we turned upside down because most of the health pyramids, the base of the pyramid is nutrition, eating olive oil and sardines and vegetables. And the second level is exercise. And the third level is stress management, and it goes up to the top. So we turned it over, and on the top is spiritual health, right at the top. We turned it over, and our base is value and purpose and spirituality as a base. Because if you don't fix the inside, you'll never really be healthy. You can do what you want and exercise every day, but if you're angry and you're not social and you're not peaceful and haven't got a spiritual aspect that you believe that there's someone who's looking after you and you to give thanks to people and give thanks, it's exceptionally. And also, I mentioned the blue zones. All of those blue zones where people live in their hundreds, they all have a religious aspect. Everyone has a spiritual aspect to them. Being a good person, just being a good person. For example, honesty. A person who inside is the same as the outside. Like they are who they are. This is who they are. There's nothing false about them. If you do something, you're not going to cover it up. Soon you start doing things we shouldn't be doing, and then we're covering up. It's stressful, and we make out we're more than we are, but we're not that. So it's stressful living up to who we're trying to make an image who we're supposed to be, but we're not that. And you become stressed by it. That's who you are. This is what it is. Just that element of being a valued person, working with the right values, is very, very crucial for every single element of health. And then social, having good social interactions with good people and looking for those good people, stress management. And then we get on to nutrition and exercise and all the other things.
It makes sense, because if you don't have some sort of spirituality, you don't have a purpose. Like, what's your purpose, right? Like, if there's not a higher something, to me, again, spirituality is whatever it is to them, but, it almost seems like there'd be no purpose in anything else, because you have to have a purpose to really live and really live well. So, right.
And that is very important for actual health, not just for religion, it's for health.
Right. No, absolutely. Because otherwise you just have no purpose in living. Like, there's not even a purpose in being healthy. So, well, thank you very much. I enjoyed this just as much as I enjoyed the first one, outside of the electricity jumping a couple of times during this talk. But what can we say? We needed the rain. So,
Excellent. Nice speaking to you again.
Yes, you too.
We'll do it a third time. Why not?
Yes, absolutely. You'll let me know what the next topic is, and we'll get it done.
Okay.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Regards to all the family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey everyone, welcome back. I have with me today Idan Green. It's been a while since she's been on, but you guys remember her. She's the youngest member of our Torah expert team thus far. I think I do this every time. I don't know, 20 or 21. 21, right? 21. And she's back today to give us some special insights. She does it so well, and I can't wait to hear what she's got.
Thank you so much. Seriously, I say this time and time again, but it's the most validating and solidifying thing to just jump into all these different topics, medical, health, the world at large, with these Torah kind of perspectives and motives. And I think, Bezrat Hashem, that's the hope that we have for everything, but it's cool to have these really unique experiences and opportunities. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
So the brain and Torah, I was actually thinking about it. And if I were to describe the brain to someone who had never heard of the brain or known what the brain was, and I said, the brain is this nucleus that is the central part of the body that, can dictate and create impact through sparks of different kind of effects throughout different systems that are much bigger than itself. And within it has all these different discrete and creative and hidden innuendos and all these different designs to it. I would say, wow, that sounds a lot like the Torah. So it's fascinating to see all these different parallels in the human body and, within the Torah and Jewish thought and philosophy. So I think with that perspective allows us to uncover so much more. And I think that's the power of utilizing ancient wisdom to just validate and further solidify and trek on to different kinds of medical and scientific ventures. So I thought I would actually kind of go in with a quote from Schoolhouse Rock. They said something that is just forever a part of my childhood, and I think it's so full of Torah and so powerful. It's literally like Al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omed, on three things the world stands, and Schoolhouse Rock has a famous song called Three is a Magic Number. And so I think that this brain and Torah unification really does highlight that. So I'm going to kind of structure this by three pairs of three and see how they all connect. So the first three that we have is Chokhmah, Bina, and Dat, which is a Kabbalistic energy. I won't get so much into it because it's an infinite amount of knowledge that I definitely don't have. But it's the energies of the world and the expressions of the universe and expressions of the self. And Chokhmah, Bina, and Dat specifically are associated to the intellect. And they're actually known as the hidden sfirot, because the truth is that the inner workings of the mind, the way that we process and identify things, is a very intimate and internal process. The way that we interact with the world is a very manifested and expressed way, but the intellect is very central and intimate with the self. So Chokhmah is associated to the right side of the brain. It's the innovative, creative, colorful, curious, and really just infinite potential kind of brain. And then we have Bina, which is known as the more analytical, the discrete, direct, logistical kind of way of interpreting the world. And then and Dat is the essential and beautiful blend of the two that really brings out the power of each one. And we really need it. And that's something we'll circle back to. So the second the second trio that we have is the reptilian brain, the limbic system, and the prefrontal cortex, the cortex system, all of those things included. And so this is actually a Torah that I did not come up with, but I came across when I was researching that I thought was so fascinating and just really incredible that I would love to continue researching. It's by Dr. Miriam Adahan. She's a psychologist. She's an author. You know who? Oh, she's amazing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I wish I heard about her.
She's from my time, so yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's not long. So she kind of coined this phrase emet, which is emotional maturity established through Torah. She would be great for the podcast. And she kind of breaks down the spiritual essence of each part of the brain. And so we'll kind of use that in our search and Bezrat Hashem discovery of how connected the brain and Torah and Jewish philosophy is. So she notes that the back of the brain, the reptilian brain, is known in Hebrew as oref. And we know, basic science and psychology suggests and says that the reptilian brain associates to the more mundane physical needs, the basic human needs and necessities that's established from the moment we're born. Food, heat, all the different kind of survivalist things that we need, going to the restroom, etc. And if you rearrange the word oref, you actually get paro, which is really fascinating because Paro really created, the king of Egypt created this persona that he was a god and that he didn't rely on the physical needs that all human beings do. So much so that our texts say that in the morning, early before anyone arose, he went to the bathroom, and late at night when everyone was sleeping, he would go to the bathroom as to keep up this, egotistical, physically driven persona. And it's really fascinating to know that he was the king of Mitzrayim because he's the king of what it means to be narrow. Meitzal means narrow. So to be so limited to dictate your entire life based off of a very physical and mundane need is definitely not what Judaism's about, definitely not what Torah is about. And it's really fascinating to see these as symbolisms of slavery and associations to that. So moving on to the next, which is the limbic system, is associated to the emotional. And this was actually not something that she listed, but I kind of wanted to tap into my inner Dr. Miriam. And I rearranged the words as well, that it says that מערכת הליmbית in Hebrew is the limbic system in Hebrew. But if you rearrange the word limbi, it's to mibli, without. So this idea that the emotional brain, the emotional capacity is getting somewhere, but it's not fully complete. This is something, neurologically, I'm not an expert, but established, I think, at a young age. And so it's getting there, but it's definitely not the full capacity and potential that a person has. Which brings us to the cortex, of course, which is the choice center, the cognitive ability to make decisions. And this is the beautiful highlight of what we just learned with Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at. Da'at is that beautiful blend of being able to look at the world with infinite potential, creativity, expansion, and also bring down that mundane idea that I'm a human being, I have needs, I have setbacks, I have limitations, and being able to merge the two together to create a great reality, and a reality that is realistic and creative. And so kind of following this trifecta is the last of our little segment here. And it is kavod, lev, and malchut. This was a beautiful Torah that I learned. I wish I had the source, but my teacher told it to me. And it's a way that Jews and Jewish philosophy really can articulate how to live life. And I think it's a really beautiful thing, and really kind of exemplifies this point of the brain being such a powerful symbolism of, the Jewish heart and the Jewish mentality. So it says that the way that we rearrange certain words, which we know is a power of Torah, because it's these different combinations of words and letters, and we see already that the power of rearranging, especially in Hebrew, it has that flexibility, that plasticity to merge around. So if we take a word, right, like kavod, which means honor, which really associates to the ego, the self. What do I need? What do I require? All the things that a person needs that are very self-focused. And then if we take lev, which starts with a lamed, it's about the emotions, it's the heart, it's expansive, but it's not quite at that point. It's still limited. And then if we take mem, which is connected to moach, it's the brain that encapsulates all of those factors, that allows us to be so discerning and expansive and infinite at the same time. And so the way that we can structure those words is how we can prioritize our life. So if we take our life and we say, kavod goes first, my honor, my most basic self and needs and limitations are the driving force, the dictator of my life. And then I have my emotions, which is still self-focused, but not complete. And then I put my moach, where I make decisions that could be based off of logic or consideration. It's klum. Nothing. It's kind of a life of emptiness, right? But wait for it. But if you flip it around and you take the moach first, the brain, the power to consider, the power to be patient, the power to make decisions based off of other people and the self, the real true self, and then you take emotions, you take empathy, you take sympathy, you take consideration, you take all those emotions, and then you take kavod, and then you take, I need to take care of myself as well. You have melech, malchut, this identity of royalty. And that's what Jewish thought is all about. It's how do we create a reality of royalty? And I think that that's just a really beautiful way to look at life and to look at things literally just through understanding the brain and the systems and the intrinsic connection we have to those. And so I kind of just wanted to bring this all together with an interesting idea that I'd like to associate a Hasidic Torah with neuroplasticity, if I can. That's right.
Absolutely, sure. This is like jaw-droppingly fantastic.
I'm so happy.
It really ties it all together, and it makes us understand what, the brain runs the body. Meaning, I tell people all the time that the brain is the ruler. The brain is the king. The brain is the melech.
Wow.
So meaning the brain, I call it the strongest organ in your body. So you could do everything right, but if your emotions and your brain function and your psychological wellness is not in the right place, that brain rules the body. So meaning your brain will be in charge of your pain. Like if your brain is not in the right place, you can make things hurt that maybe there's no real orthopedic reason for, but it can be emotional. It can be psychological. The brain is the strongest organ in the body. So this just fits in so well. And it's why it is so important to make sure that our brains are functioning well, especially as we age. It's the importance of having this brain health. So now I would love to hear your tie-in because everything you've said so far has just resonated with me.
Wow, thank you so much. That's really beautiful. And like, that's beautiful. Like, I'm sure you see it on the daily also with working with the body. So, like holistically, like really seeing how it can be affected by that. 1000%. I totally agree. So, so we know that neuroplasticity is kind of the brain's ability to shift and change, and the way that we can interact with the world, the way that we experience the world. Oftentimes it's associated, to my understanding, through brain trauma, a stroke, but even, I think, like we said now, like just really the power of thought and manifestation and prayer, whatever those mediums are, whatever those philosophies are, they all really say the same thing. It's just different languages, different translations, but truly it's the power of the brain. And so with that, there's the idea in Chavot HaLevavot, which is a powerful, beautiful work of Torah that's known as Duties of the Heart. And it talks a lot about mazal. It talks about what luck. We have Adar coming up, so I thought I would tie in that as well.
Yeah.
So what, lot we're given in life. And so there's the idea that there are three, again, another beautiful trifecta, three mazals that are determined before we're born. That they're set, locked, and sealed. We can change different things in our life except those. And so it's kind of, I've read different kind of explanations and interpretations of one of them, but the truth is that they really all highlight the same kind of structure. So the first one is how much money a person has in their life. The second one is what their health is, how long they'll live, what their health conditions will be, and the last one is who they'll be married to / children. So how many children they have, and all of the things that fall into that. And really all of them, again, can be categorized within those things, right? We know that money can be associated to mazon, the basic human needs, what I need to buy to sustain myself, physical sustenance. And then the second one we have with marriage and children, that is an emotional. What emotional connections am I going to have in my lifetime? That's the limbic system. And then we have the third one, which is connected to the expansive fulfillment of that, of feeling like the choices I made in life. It's not just about the longevity of life, but it's the content and quality of life that I think is being hinted to and alluded to in that Torah. So according to that, there's no way it's locked, it's changed. This is your fate. This is you're pre-diagnosed, you're set, of course, that this is the reality. However, of course, we learn that through many different ones. I heard this specifically through Zera Shimshon, which is a sefer on the Parsha and different other Meforshim. And he writes that a person can change their mazel in life, but they have to do it through a big zchuyot. There has to be a big change. There has to be a big shift. Right? And that could be taking on mitzvot, doing tshuva. That could be translated into a myriad of different examples and explanations. But the core of it, which I think that Hasidut really taps into, is that by changing oneself, by changing a perspective or an interaction with the world, or the way that a person has a mindset, literally changing the mind can change the mazal, can change the world. If a person, let's say, changes a part of themselves that is maybe more negative, or they are open to something, than they had been prior, they themselves are changing, which means that the mazal that was dictated to them when they were born is not going to be the same, because they're a different person. There's a sense of hitchadshut, this neuroplasticity that happens. So literally a person can physically change their reality based off of their mind and choices, but also spiritually. And I think that that's just an incredible koach and power to tap into. And so much so, going into the month of Adar, why do we say Misha Nichnas Adar Marbi B'Simcha? One who enters Adar is going to be blessed with Simcha. And it's also associated to the month of Mazal, right? If you have a court date, you should go during Adar. That's what Jewish philosophy and Jewish practice says. So there's definitely no coincidence, as the Torah also tells us. God says, there's no such thing as coincidence. Everything is divinely designed. And so if there's a direct association with joy and making those conscious decisions and making a conscious effort to change one's, attributes or actions or reactions to the world, then most definitely their mazal is going to be uplifted. Most definitely their reality is going to be blessed with decadent joy and decadent change. And I think that in essence is the power and the truly manifested koach and power of the brain. So that's some sort Torah ideas and Hasidic and Jewish, and
That was like a Dvar Torah in a Dvar Torah. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. No, thank you so much. Thank you for making time for me, for putting this all together. It was so great. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Please seek guidance from a trusted healthcare professional. By listening to this podcast, you release Holy Health and all of its guests from all liability. I'd like to thank Yakir Abelo for editing this podcast.